Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. It's the sixth celebration of the African History Month Conference 2022, and it's the 21st of March. My name is Otieno Maria Nyango, and I'm your host for today. So, it's the fifth celebration of the African History Month, and I'm so excited. Today we are going to talk a lot about the our theme topic for today is actually the rift between African Americans and continental Africans. And as we know, we've been having this a lot of celebrations of the African History Month. Because it is an annual celebration, of course, of the achievements of people of the African descent, and recognition of the enormous contributions Africa has made to the world civilization. So, actually, our first guest speaker for today is going to be Iwar. And before we start, maybe I would just like to introduce our first guest speaker. Actually, she's called Jessica Ann Michelle, and she's going to be speaking to us, okay, about the rift between continental Africans and African Americans. So Jessica Ann is the founder of the National Black Cultural Information Trust. It's a non-governmental organization, and it deals with the cultural information, stories, and resources that uplift the collective freedom of Black communities while correcting cultural misinformation. So, our first keynote speaker will be speaking to us after the above video. I hope she will really empower us with the topic. So, stay put, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, okay. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Jessica Ann, if you can hear me. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Maybe you can just tell us first about yourself and about your foundation before we get back to the topic for the day.
Sure. As you stated, I'm Jessica Ann Mitchell. I woo your. I'm an African American from Georgia and South
Yeah.
Carolina. I run the National Black Cultural Information Trust, where we share resources and information that uplifts the collective freedom of Black communities while
Yeah.
also challenging cultural misinformation.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so very much for us. And maybe if we can just get quick to the point because I feel like you have a lot in store for us. The rift between continental Africans and African Americans.
Yes, sure. I can definitely get started. And I just want to say thank you for having me today.
You're welcome.
There are many misunderstandings constantly spread about African Americans and our relationship with Africans and or the African continent. Additionally, there are many misconceptions about Pan-Africanism and its relevance in our lives. Some would have you believe that African Americans and Africans don't have familial bonds or cultural ties. However, this belief couldn't be further from the truth. The truth is, the Pan African world remains connected and maintains relationships that uplifts the global Black collective. The journey towards the creation of African Americans began when the first enslaved Africans were brought to the present day United States in 1526. They were brought by the Spanish to what is now present day South Carolina, but they rebelled and prevented the Spanish from having a successful colony. However, the historical experience of African Americans does not begin with slavery, it begins in Africa. Over the course of 400 years, over 12 million Africans were transported across the Americas, with close to 400,000 arriving in modern day United States of America. However, we did not emerge out of thin air, but are instead a mixture of African people of multiple ethnic groups, predominantly from Western and Central Africa. Some believe African Americans to be a lost people, but we are not a lost people. We are a combined people. We are the descendants of the Mandinka, the Tikar, the Igbo, the Angolan, the Bantu, the Yoruba, the Akan, and so on. The transatlantic slave trade and chattel slavery did not erase the cultural legacy of African Americans any more than colonialism erased the cultural legacy of African ethnic groups still on the continent. During the slave trade and chattel slavery, the ancestors of African Americans, Afro Latinos, Afro Caribbean people, were often prevented from speaking their African languages and practicing their religions. Furthermore, the dominant Western culture demonized all aspects of Black African cultures. Still, many of our ancestors maintained, understood, and cherished their African identity. In 1739, a group of our Congolese ancestors, directly from the Kingdom of Congo, staged the Stono Rebellion in South Carolina, using their military training and fluency in Portuguese to revolt on their way to Spanish Florida. In 1782, the term African American appeared in a Philadelphia newspaper, the earliest known usage of the term, used in reference to two sermons written by an African American minister. In 1787, Richard Allen and Absalom Jones founded the Free African Society and later the African Methodist Episcopal Church, which is one of the oldest Black institutions in the United States of America, a church from which my family descends from. During the Underground Railroad, our ancestors carved a Congolese cosmogram in the floorboards of the first African Baptist church in Savannah, Georgia, a symbol representing birth, life, death, and rebirth. Our ancestors also passed along to us our speech. Much of African American vernacular English derives from African speech patterns and languages. Our foods, our familiar traditions, music and dances, like those born in Louisiana's Congo Square, are all interconnected Africanisms from before the Great Ma'afa, the Great Divide. Throughout the centuries, battling for our freedom in the Americas, we relied on memory with the understanding that where we are is not where we should be. An understanding that this displacement is connected to a larger anti African oppression driven by Europe on the global scale using the mechanisms of the transatlantic slave trade, chattel slavery, Jim Crow, and colonialism. David Walker, in his famed David Walker's Appeal of 1829, cried out against the tyranny and hypocrisy of the American government, asking if we should go to our brethren, the Haitians, who, according to their word, are bound to protect and comfort us. This was a signal that African descendants in different parts of the Americas still recognized their interconnectedness and similar struggles for freedom. Walker further stated, "Let me cry shame upon you Americans for such outrages upon human nature. If it were possible for the whites always to keep us ignorant and miserable and make us to enrich them and their children and insult our feelings by representing us as talking apes, what would they do? By glory, honor, and praise to heaven's King, that the sons and daughters of Africa will, in spite of all the opposition of their enemies, stand forth in the dignity and glory that is granted by the Lord to his creature man." 128 years after David Walker's appeal, invoking the continued African American bond to Africa, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his wife Coretta Scott King went to Ghana in 1957 to celebrate its independence from Britain. Dr. King met with then Prime Minister Kwame Nkrumah, who would later go on to be Ghana's first president. King was so inspired by Ghana breaking from its colonial master that he shed tears during the independence ceremony. In his speech titled "The Birth of a New Nation," Dr. King described his emotions in detail. "The old Union Jack flag came down and the new flag of Ghana went up. This was a new nation now, a new nation being born. And when Prime Minister Nkrumah stood up before his people out in the polo ground and said, 'We are no longer a British colony. We are a free, sovereign people.' All over that vast throng of people, we could see tears. And I stood there thinking about so many things. Before I knew it, I started weeping. I was crying for joy. And I knew about all of the struggles and all of the pain and all of the agony that these people had gone through for this moment. After Nkrumah made that final speech, it was about 12:30 now, and we walked away. And I could hear little children 6 years old and old people 80, 90 years old walking the streets of Accra saying, 'Freedom, freedom.'" Dr. King continued, "They were crying in the sense that they had never heard the word before. And I could hear that old Negro spiritual Moor crying out, 'Free at last, great God Almighty, I'm free at last.' They were experiencing that in their very souls. And everywhere we turned, we could hear it ringing from the housetops. We could hear it from every corner, every nook and crook of the community. Freedom, freedom. This was the birth of a new nation." When Dr. King returned to the United States, He used Ghana's independence as a source of inspiration, recognizing that if Ghana was free, African Americans would one day be free. He saw that African American and African freedom was intertwined as he pushed the Nixon administration towards change. Later in his speech, Dr. King linked the struggles of colonialism to the struggles of Jim Crow and segregation. He said, "The road to freedom is difficult, but finally Ghana tells us that the forces of the universe are on the side of justice." That's what it tells us now. You can interpret Ghana any kind of way you want. But Ghana tells me that the forces of the universe are on the side of justice. That night when I saw that old flag coming down and the new flag coming up, I saw something else that wasn't just ephemeral, evanescent, it wasn't just a ephemeral, evanescent event appearing on the stage of history, but it was an event with eternal meaning, for it symbolizes something. That thing symbolized to me an old order is passing away and a new order is coming into being. An old order of colonialism and segregation and discrimination is passing away now, and a new order of justice and freedom and goodwill is being born. That's what it said. Somehow the forces of freedom stand on the side of the universe so that you can't ultimately trample over God's children and profit by it. Also, El Haj Malik El Shabazz, known as Malcolm X by many, our freedom fighting shining prince, reminded us many times of our Africanity and the need to understand and embrace it. He told us, "You can't hate the roots of a tree without ending up hating the tree. You can't hate your origin without ending up hating yourself. You can't hate the land, your motherland, the place that you came from. And you can't hate Africa without ending up hating ourselves." The Black man in the Western Hemisphere is the best example. The Western Hemisphere, North America, Central America, South America, and in the Caribbean is the best example of how one can be made skillfully to hate himself that you can find anywhere on this earth. They projected Africa always in a negative light: jungles, savages, cannibals, nothing civilized. Why then, naturally, it was so negative that it was negative to you and me, and you and I began to hate it. We didn't want anybody telling us anything about Africa, much less calling us Africans. In hating Africa and in hating ourselves, we ended up hating ourselves without even realizing it. Because you can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree. You can't hate your origin and not end up hating yourself. You can't hate Africa and not hate yourself. Malcolm X told us we are Africans and we happen to be in America. We are not Americans. We are people who formerly were Africans who were kidnapped and brought to America. Our forefathers weren't the Pilgrims. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock landed on us. We were brought here against our will. We were not brought here to be made citizens. We were not brought here to enjoy the constitutional gifts that they speak so beautifully of today. And at the Audubon Ballroom in 1964, he told us this: "You can't understand what is going on in Mississippi if you don't understand what's going on in the Congo. And you can't really be interested in what's going on in Mississippi if you're not also interested in what's going on in the Congo. They're both the same. The same interests are at stake, the same sides are drawn up, the same schemes are at work in the Congo that are at work in Mississippi, the same stake, no difference whatsoever." After losing our greatness, Dr. King and Malcolm X, the Black Panther Party reminded us that Black is beautiful and to embrace Black power, an internalized power derived from unity and awareness and pride in African heritage. And Africa is where Black Panthers sought a refuge, welcomed in Tanzania and Algeria. In the 1990s, African American students led protests in the United States against corporations and universities, urging them to divest from South Africa. as the South African apartheid regime had murdered and oppressed the South African masses. In the 2000s, the Black Lives Matter movement spread from the Americas to the continent and back again, with people of African descent showing worldwide support for Black lives and freedom internationally. In 2019, thousands of African Americans traveled to Ghana for the Year of Return. Some sought to dismiss this occasion as simply a tourism ploy. Maybe it was, but it holds greater significance than tourism. The Year of Return signified the continuing cultural ties and recognition of our shared fight for freedom in the Pan African world. The Year of Return pays homage to our ancestors and uplifts our humanity by recognizing that our heritage did not start with enslavement. Our heritage and cultural lineage began on the continent of Africa. Our collective freedom and struggles for liberation will forever be linked to our motherland, and despite everything the world throws at us, those bonds will never be broken. Still, despite this long history of African American and African historical interconnections, there are rifts among the African diaspora and continental Africans. Some of us feel disconnected, unwanted, and misunderstood. There's a misguided belief among many that all Africans don't like us and all Africans sold us away. There is a misguided belief that once we left the shores of Africa, we became something else, a different, un African people. On the other hand, some continental Africans believe us to be cultureless and are unsupportive. These anti Black, anti African tropes between some continental Africans and African descendants is often highly influenced by Western based miseducation in media in both Africa and North America that promotes anti Blackness rooted in Afrophobia at every turn, leaving African descendants and Africans on the continent circling in an endless cycle of confusion and rage uselessly aimed at each other. And though Dr. Carter G. Woodson founded Negro History Week, which is now Black History Month, in part to teach African Americans about the great achievements of African civilizations, current generations have even divulged into arguing over which Black people should be allowed to celebrate Black History Month. And though Kwame Nkrumah proclaimed, "I am not African because I was born in Africa, but because Africa was born in me," there are some in current generations who still argue over the cultural relevance of Black America and its connections to Africa. At a time when technological communications have reached innovative heights, and at a time when the ability to share and organize for the human rights of all African descendant people has become easier due to advanced technological tools, many of us have spent day after day online engaging in so called diaspora wars, arguing over everything from teapots, movie roles, accents, and the list goes on. Much of these arguments are driven by miseducation about ourselves and each other, thus allowing us to believe the worst about ourselves and each other. Dr. Carter G. Woodson discussed this in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, stating, "If you can control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his action. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. If you make a man think that he is justly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told. And if there is no back door, his very nature will demand one." Some of us are unfortunately and unknowingly choosing the back door by being more persuaded by rifts and controversy than interconnectedness and our collective well being at a time when all African descended people are battling global white supremacy. However, none of this is by chance. Our progress depends on us recognizing our interconnectedness. And there are many that do not want us to progress. Today, there are people, Black people, that take advantage of misunderstanding and miseducation by promoting rifts between Africans and African Americans and online spaces like Twitter, Clubhouse, and YouTube. These people usually profit heavily from cultural turmoil and confusion through online donations and business ventures. Additionally, there are international entities of various races and ethnicities, including white nationalists in the United States, that push false and harmful narratives about Black communities for various nefarious reasons, ranging from voter suppression to minimizing Black collective unity. Though actual legitimate rifts among Africans and African Americans does exist, like African American ties to the imperial core, as was displayed through the unequal establishment of Liberia, and perceived judgment and disconnectedness by continental Africans, much of online discourse has been manufactured and amplified by easily manipulated algorithms. The truth is, no matter the controversy or argument amongst us, we've all been told the same lie, the lie of the colonized mind, the lie that tells us we are inferior, unworthy, and powerless. Our human rights will always be interconnected, and our futures will always be interconnected. Whether we like it or not, we will always be interconnected. On this journey towards our collective freedom, there must be an understanding globally that overthrowing the tools of global anti Black oppressive systems includes gaining self knowledge and reconnecting with our origins and gaining greater understanding of the Pan African world. This process will be imperfect and will have many growing pains, but it's necessary and powerful. Those of us that have been tasked with the role by our ancestors as organizers and educators must do everything possible to ensure that our communities, wherever we live, have access to truthful education about all African people, about the entire African diaspora, and about the necessity of the Pan African collective struggle for freedom. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was a very, very extensive, of course, history, and of course, to the point where the rift started, the Great Rift, and all these. And I just have a question, kind of, because I have heard whatever you said, and actually, I feel like it's very empowering to see. But do you think that this rift is somehow going to narrow anytime soon, or at least for future generations, considering that every step taken towards maybe the narrowing or the widening of the rift is due to individualistic approaches? Because actually, several years ago, there's a person called Kate Richburg, an African American correspondent to Africa for the Washington Post, who wrote in a book entitled Out of Africa. Just read whatever he says. There's a phrase where he says, "Thank God my ancestors got out, because now I am not one of them." In short, thank God. Um, I'm an American. He went on to say, "I'm a stranger here, that is in Africa, adrift. I look like them, but I cannot understand what it is to be one of them. True, my ancestors came from this place. These are my distant cousins, but a chasm has opened up, a chasm of 400 years and 10,000 miles. Nothing in my upbringing has instilled in me any sense of what it must be like to be an African." So, of course, although his words, of course, caused controversy, Rich Bag's view, of course, is not all that uncommon. There's some people who feel like they've been alienated from Africa, like they have no strings attached to Africa. So, do you think this individual opinion is going to affect any milestones or anything aimed towards the widening or the right, the narrowing of this rift between African Americans and continental Africans?
Thank you for that question.
Yeah.
I think that it doesn't have to. I think that it doesn't have to have this massive power over the ways in which we connect and unify. Usually, when we hear arguments like this about, I have no cultural connection or I have no connection to the continent, it really is based on misinformation and miseducation. Because when you break down African American history and cultural legacy, almost everything about us that we consider unique, which is unique, has ties to our African ancestors and our cousins on the continent. And it's often this interconnectedness that people usually do not know about. And it's not because people don't want to know about it. There are some that are like that. But the American system, for example, teaches us nothing about Africa. So you continuously get, and hardly teaches us African American history. So you continuously get generations of people that are rediscovering themselves. That's why in my speech, I kind of went through a timeline at different points through African American history where various ancestors continue to reassert their Africanity, because it's almost as if, and Malcolm X talked about how we've been taught to hate Africa because we always are presented with these negative images of Africa, its people, the continent, and negative images about ourselves. So what ends up happening is people that genuinely do not know that, and will genuinely believe they have no connection at all to Africa. Once you break down African American history and all the information that they were never taught, people have a greater understanding of what it means to be African and not just existing on the continent. When our ancestors were taken away, a lot of people think that everything about them was stripped away, that they lost all their heritage and cultural identity. But when you look at who we are, if you look at how we speak, like African American vernacular English, if you look at the Gullah Geechee language in South Carolina and Georgia, it's made up of 20 different African languages. If you look at our music, if you look at all the things that we cherish as African Americans, it has a direct connection to our African ancestry and the various Africanisms that our ancestors maintained through them and gave to us as a cultural inheritance. So, what often happens is we as African Americans are living, breathing African history and often just do not know that. And so we think there's only one way to be African, that we're not included in the Pan-African world. Not all of us think that, of course, but that's kind of like the mindset that drives that. That's why Malcolm X tried so hard to get people to understand the roots of the tree are Africa, and that in hating Africa, we end up hating ourselves, because that is not just our origins, that is our lifeblood. That is what it is within us, no matter where we are on the planet. It's why Dr. Carter G. Woodson, when he started Negro History Week, wanted us to learn about Mali and great African civilization and empires, because he believed that with us understanding that our ancestry comes from such a great people, that we will have a greater understanding of ourselves and what's possible for us to create and build no matter where we are, including in the United States of America. So I think these individual beliefs, the negative beliefs about the rifts between continental Africans and African Americans, do not have to widen the gap if those of us that are educators, those of us that are cultural storytellers, those of us that are tasked with this role of carrying on the legacy and making sure our people understand it and know it, do our jobs, We have to do our jobs. We have to continue to push through. We have to continue to educate. And I believe with more awareness and education, these divides can lessen and people can really understand our interconnectedness and our dependency on each other.
That was a very, very interesting talk. I'm actually glad I'm getting empowered because in my mind, I had been living with this some kind of stereotypes that, oh my God, I just don't think we will ever reach that point where we can, stay as Africans and just, stay true to our African race or as a whole and appreciate the African culture. But I'm glad to hear it from an African American, if I can say that actually this rift doesn't have to widen this much because we are one blood from one race and we have one common origin, which is Africa. So thank you very much, Jessica Ann. And actually, I think we'll get back to you later. Thank you very much as
Thank
we
you.
continue. Yeah, welcome. As we continue, we like to take a little break and then we will actually invite our next speaker, Karim Daniel Rice, who will talk about African Caribbean relations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you heard of the Sankofa bird? Before he understood, while looking backward was important and good. Young Sankofa was different. What did he lack? While he faced forward, his family all looked back. He asked his sister, "What is behind you that you need to see?" "Our history, young brother," she said. "History for you and me." Sankofa goes to see his brother. They often laugh and joke with each other. "You look back too," Sankofa said. "What is the reason you turn your head?" Brother replies, "To remember our ancestors, their lives and their stories, their triumphs, their wisdom, their pain and their glory." Sankofa never minded being different before, but now it bothered him to his core. Something didn't feel right in his spirit. He went to his mother to pay her a visit. Sankofa cries to his mother about how he is different from the others. Mother holds Sankofa close and says, "To be different must be hard, I'm sure. I had never thought of you that way before." Mother wipes Sankofa's tears and says, "Do not cry, do not fear, my dear." Father joins them by the riverside and speaks to Sankofa of their history and pride. "Son, we believe learning from our past teaches us lessons that forever last, helping us not to repeat mistakes and reach our dreams no matter how long it takes. The egg represents the knowledge we need. If as Africans we are to succeed, Grandma and Granddad Sankofa arrive in time to see Sankofa reach back, turn and shine. So children of Africa, sing, dance and beat the village drum. Sankofa has a message to share across our kingdom. To know where you are going, you must know where you are from. Sankofa's reason for turning was simple: to be an everlasting symbol for all African people.
Yeah, welcome back again, ladies and gentlemen. So, our next speaker is Karim Daniel Rice, a mental health coach, peer advisor, producer, audio engineer, singer, songwriter, and he will just introduce himself and tell us about himself before going back to the topic for the day. And he's actually going to speak about Africa Caribbean relations. Welcome, Karim Daniel. Yeah, welcome, Karim Daniel. Um,
Hello, can you hear me? I'm not sure if you're hearing me. Yeah. Hello, good day. My name is Karim Daniel Rice, and I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. An audio engineer, right? And I'm also a fellow with the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights, also known as FIRE. And I am a mental health advocate, and I counsel my peers when they're going through challenging times. Yeah. So I'm happy to be here. All protocols observed, and thank you so much, um, Jessica, for that riveting story and sharing so much empowering information. Um, Today, I'm here to speak on Caribbean and African relations, and based on my reading, I have seen that, well, I observed that um, there has been several collaborations between the Caribbean and Africa, yeah, to formulate policies to eradicate the apartheid, to deal with the colonization that has impacted our people. Uh, it is and has been a tremendous journey um, for me as a young man of African descent, trying to find himself and to understand that there is something great that I may perhaps have come from. But as Jessica had mentioned before, um, these things have not been taught to us in schools. Yeah, the the education system is limited because before slavery, it's almost as if we didn't exist. And something deep within me refused to accept that as my truth. And in terms of the stereotypes where um, persons are fearful of blackness or African culture, I was one of those people. Yeah, I scared of the continent, scared of African people, as I to myself did not feel as though I could relate. Yeah. Then I asked myself, I'm just like these people. We look almost the same. Yeah. We are accustomed to living in more or less the same type of temperature. How did I get here? How did I get here? We came here through slavery and we left behind various languages. We left behind skills. We left behind medicines. We left behind many things. But for some strange reason, when I play the African drums or I hear the drums, something comes alive deep within me. When I gravitate to art and music or drama, I feel connected in such a inexplainable way. It's almost infinite. The way the energy just strikes me when I see these things and I hear these things and I feel these things. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, and gravitating towards Africa or African culture, whether it be dressing, it comes with a stigma. Who does this person think they are? What's up with him? It's almost as if when one decides to venture into looking in oneself to find out where they came from, it's seen as a bad thing. To be black and proud, to express oneself to walk that path of self discovery. It's almost as a if one is handed a life sentence or labeled as some sort of black sheep. Yeah. Um, and it shouldn't be so. Because, in fact, and this may be anecdote, storytelling form I'm telling you here because I'm a storyteller as well. It's almost as if that hate for self or that fear of what is Africa is instantly handed down to persons who are inspired to look within and find out more about their cultures. That self hate is real. It's real. I've sat on both ends of the spectrum, being fearful, then finding that understanding of why. Why is it such a fearful thing for those who are not seeking to understand spirituality or Africanness or oneness with everything and self? Why aren't we educated about self or where we come from? These questions are questions I think should be considered rhetorical questions right now. Because we already know the answers to those questions, as there are many sources of information in the public domain or online sources, libraries that can tell the tales of why all of this has been propagated or perpetuated against the black man and woman, the slaves who came here through the transatlantic slave trade and found themselves ripped apart from languages, from parents, grandparents, maybe even wives, sons, and daughters stolen away. The question is that information, what are we going to do with that information? It has already happened and that can't change. With regards to relations between the Caribbean and Africa, I can't ever say that. I have never felt connected or a part of something greater than me until I began communicating with my brothers and sisters on the African continent. You don't have to believe me. Look at the evidence. I'm here speaking on this international platform from in the Caribbean, utilizing the technology that we have been so fortunate to be able to take advantage of through this COVID pandemic. I made my mind up to come here and speak from the heart and just let it all out. Hopefully, my accent is understood and it and I'm capable to be felt around the world with my words currently. There's no denying that there's no denying that there has been linkages, synergies at diplomatic levels between the Caribbean and Africa. There's no denying that. However, me, persons like I, who seek to educate or build bridges for those who are considered grassroots. Maybe one day we'll reach to a place where a grassroots individual, a citizen, a human being who originated from Africa can directly communicate and benefit from opportunities that can uplift them without even having to go through the hurdles that may exist and sway them away, whether it be systematic obstacles strategically put in place to dissuade them, or whether it be the lack of visuals, because people gravitate to things that they see and are fascinated by. And I'm one of those people who have been fortunate to have ventured into different types of resources. I love hearing um, the late Dr. Ivan Van Sertima speak and share his information of the greatness of those who had came before me. I love hearing him speak about the ways our ancestors despised mediocrity and ignorance. But one thing we cannot afford to do is continue ignoring the talents and gifts and the capacity that we as African people possess around the world in terms of creating, whether it be skilled wise, hands, mental, peaceful people, peaceful people redirected against themselves in a negative way that causes them to take their own lives, warring against each other. For what? It's really amazing to connect with people from the diaspora, whether it be America, Africa, the Caribbean, speaking the same language, articulating, yeah, to achieve a standard of relevance on a global scale, shedding light where it needs to be shed, the dispensing of information that needs to be dispensed so that the teachers, the nurturers, the carers, the mothers, the daughters, the sisters who are celebrating Women's Month right now, how can we as people continue to lift and show the grassroots that, hey, you're not necessarily grass. Perhaps you may be a tree that isn't getting the proper nourishment in order for it to grow and bear fruit that can be sustainable and passed down from generation to generation, from lip to ear or in text. And these could just be my thoughts and the way I see the world, my perception. There's no doubt that it has been a traumatic experience growing up black or African in the Caribbean. There's no doubt that perhaps maybe all of these circumstances has greatly affected the mental health of our people. There's no doubt that mental health as well. There's no health without mental health. There's no doubt that we as a people need healing, patience, and understanding. Excuse me. In order to achieve that oneness, that balance within self, I, Karim Daniel Rice, I'm one of those persons who intends to continuously build bridges for my brothers and sisters. Notwithstanding the humble beginnings I come from, I think that raw brain power is enough to get things done on any given day. Yeah. On any given day, my brothers and sisters who have been experiencing traumatic experience, mental health conditions, I'm always open to giving them a peaceful word. And I do hope that my fellow brothers and sisters in civil society are doing the same without expecting any source of financial deliverance and capitalizing over these hardships of these people who may be in a lesser position because they don't have access to the information that we may have access to. How great it is that this COVID pandemic has forced upon us the ability to communicate and share or create a chain of minds around the world that is capable of doing so many powerful things.
Yeah.
And I'll close with that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Karim, Daniel. That was very wonderful hearing you say all those nice things. And actually, it's very important to note that at least the Caribbean shares this cultural descent, with the African. They have this cultural link with the African origin, and it is very nice. And we can see that usually from their music, they sing a lot about their fidelity to their roots, to the Africans, and the Africanism. And this is one of the things that make us see that actually the African Caribbean relations is very strong. They're really tied to their African descent, in as much as they're miles away in another continent. We can see that they live for Africa, and actually their roots, they're really, really tied to Africa, which is a nice thing because after all, as we say, that we are one and the same origin. We are one and the same race. We are one and the same blood. So thank you very much, Karim Daniel. That was wonderful. And we will like to get a quick break before introducing Shareni Kalashi, actually. And then who was supposed to speak after our guest Chizoba, but she's not in, so she'll speak after. But we can get back later in case of any comments. Thank you. Yeah, so welcome Sharonika Lashe to studio. I am pretty much excited about your topic because apparently I think it's sort of autobiography and autobiography. So I can't wait to have you talk to us about it. Maybe if you can just introduce yourself to us and just take us through this hustle through pain. I am intrigued by the topic. Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Sharonika Lachey. I'm a mother of three, two girls and one boy. I'm from Thompson, Georgia. It's like 2 hours away from Atlanta. I live in Atlanta. So just to jump right in because it is a long story to make it short. And I thank y'all for having me on this platform. I am grateful to piggyback off of Kareem and Jessica because I actually learned something throughout this whole conference. Things I didn't even know, things that I'm going to research also after this live to because I also I'm interested in connecting back to my roots as well. And like they said, the picture was painted bad about Africa, and so they only show us the bad, never taught us anything in school about the good. But raising up like basically like growing up as a black person, it's a lot. It comes with a lot. And the thing about it is we're so strong, we're so powerful, and that goes for African Americans and Africans. And so I feel like our opposition or our opponents know how powerful we are when we come together. So the trick is to call division. The trick is to make us hate ourselves. The trick is to make us hate each other. And so they paint this picture, or the trick is to make us be stuck on the system so we can be bound to poverty because, they want us, when you think of blacks or whatever, they want to think us as poor. So like even with this saying that I don't even know where it came from, but if you want to hide something from a black person, put in a book. Who who came up with that? And so I remember hearing that when I was younger, and even growing up, I was called dumb, called slow. And so word curses sometimes can make us not operate in our identity. We start becoming something that we're not because of things that we heard. And that what happened to me. So basically, I was told you cannot speak correctly. You can't. So I avoided things like this, public speaking, because I knew I couldn't pronounce words correctly or I couldn't talk correctly. So I silenced my voice because I was afraid of this person might say this or this person might pick on me. So when it was laid on me about writing my story, I'll write a book by me. I never would have thought I would have wrote a book because I was stuck in that mindset bondage, which that can happen to a whole lot of people stuck on what someone else said or spoke negative about you. And so me growing up, we battling with generational curses, and a lot of us battle with generational curses, battling with different things that we don't even understand. Nobody taught us, nobody told us how to handle this, how to handle that. So hustle through the pain came about growing up in a spirituality home. I was raised up in the church. I didn't have no choice. I was forced. I didn't have no choice. Like literally, all throughout the week, every Sunday, we had to be at church. And so I go to church and I see how everybody interacting with each other. I see how it still was a lot that I didn't agree with. And so I had made up a decision in my mind. I said, when I grow up, when I have when I be able to make a decision of my own, I'm not going back. That's exactly what I did. So when I got to that age, I didn't go back. But once something inside of you is inside of you, you always end up going back to it. So hustle through the pain came about. I had a experience when I was out there in the world in the street life. I became a victim to sex trafficking. I was sitting here chasing fame, chasing fortune, and the thing about it was I was chasing the wrong things and trying to be something because I felt like I got accepted by the streets. And so basically what happened was when I became a victim of sex trafficking, I ran back to my spirituality. I ran back to the church. I started studying and it opened me up. And so I wasn't a reader because I felt like I was dumb. I felt like I couldn't read. It made me start reading more. I started learning more. I started writing more. And I ended up writing a book and writing my whole life story out. So I don't regret what happened to me. I just changed my pain and made that my promise. And so I had all the wrong hustles when I was in the street. And so I prayed and I was like, give me so many hustles that I would never look back. I would never go back to that lifestyle. I would never do this, never do that. And so that's how the hustle through the pain came about, because now I'm a serial entrepreneur and I know how to do so many things, to the point some stuff I have to narrow it down so I won't be all over the place. But I ended up writing a book, published a book, and then also did a prayer journey. But all of that came about. It took, like Kareem, he said he's a mental health coach. It took therapy. I don't know what it is about our community. Feel like therapy is bad. Therapy is good. We all need therapy. But it took doing different things, working on myself, getting to know myself, so I won't hate myself, because we're taught to hate ourselves. And so I had to do different things to break free. And so I can also experience freedom. And so I won't let my past hunt me. Sometimes we also allow our past to hold us back. Like literally, a lot of people are held back because of our past and lack of knowledge. A lot of things I did not know. But when I end up finding out, it's like it opens up a door. So we do, and them basically trying to connect this with the theme as well. But we need to do more research. We need to open up and not just shut everything down. I like to talk to people, because what separates people is different religion, different race, different cultures, but we all can experience love. And like what Kareem was saying as well, sometimes I do see videos on social media of African videos, them dancing. It been plenty of times I said I want to go to Africa, but it got so many different things put out to make it seem like you shouldn't go, we shouldn't go, this might happen, you might die, or it's like different things have been placed in our mind to try to scare us, because they really don't want us to connect with our roots. And so I'm glad y'all having this program. I'm glad y'all have this conference. I'm enjoying it. I love it. And but basically, and then also like with the music, like in the United States, the with the music, now some of the music is connected. And but when I hear African music, it's like he said, I feel a connection with the United States music. When we put music out, we're getting paid more to talk about ourselves. We're getting paid more to down ourselves and to belittle ourselves, which is sad. We have to come together. We're gonna have to stick up and sometimes get in bad trouble, like telling the truth, because everybody don't want to hear the truth. And we have to do our research. But that's all I had to say. Thank you for having me.
um Actually, because some of us may be very intrigued, we would actually just like to read the book Hustle to Pain. So how can we find it? Can we find it online, or how can
Yeah.
we get access to this book? Yeah.
So this is the book,
Yeah.
and this is the prayer journal. I have a lot of testimonies as well. The book is on the website www.sharonika.com. That's SharonikaLashay.com. And also with the prayer journal, it basically got different prayers for different warfare, different type of fights, different things that we battle with rejection, with pain, with suffering from a loss, relationship, different spirituality. And that's why it's easy for me to connect with people that don't believe in God and the people that do believe in God, because I've been there, done that. And even though I came back, but it's like I can relate to different levels of people, because it's hard to relate to somebody if you never been through it. So, and also the Hustle Through the Pain book, basically going over about how I went through all this trauma, I went through all these different things growing up, and how basically took all of that and made it into my purpose. And when I did start finding my own identity, I started taking off. And now I don't have to chase fame, I don't have to chase money, I don't have to chase this, it chased me. And so I was able to leave my 9 to 5, which is going on 2 years now. I've been doing full-time entrepreneurship that I only work for myself and I pay myself. But all of that came through my obedience and me going through freedom and me learning me and operating my own identity and not operating out of somebody else's identity. Because sometimes we can compare ourselves to somebody else, and then we can start trying to imitate another person, which that's not authentic. We're not being our authentic self.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I personally would. I'm actually going for the book after this show because I am very intrigued. I would like to know your thoughts more on that book, and and I think actually I would get to have some kind of identity, because it's not just it's not like when you're in Africa you now have this identity, this personal internal whatever internal struggles that we have. So I think I think that book is just not for people of the African American origin, but for everyone as in general, like Africans and continental Africans, African Caribbeans, and I think it will be a great help for us. Yeah. So
Yes, and
thank you very much.
I also have e-copies as well, and they'll send you an instant download. If you
Yeah.
purchase the e-copy, it'll send it right directly to your email.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So okay, so thank you, that was Sharonika Lashley. A wonderful conversation there about hustle through pain. I am very intrigued. Okay, so our next speaker will be Chizoba Ogo right after a short break.
We are calling on everybody to think Africa, act Africa, and prosper Africa.
It comes down to the change of mindset.
We are implementing the Africa we want.
A lot of the countries understand that this is good for them, that it is a game changer.
This is an historic moment for our continent.
So this is entirely African driven. These African countries are making a treaty among themselves.
We've been brought up with so many borders. You know, we have our little countries, we have our little economies, our little sectors. We have so many things that divide us, and I think this is an opportunity to really push against those boundaries and to change them.
I think you need to be very, very focused in what you are doing. Once you believe in what you are doing, you see, you should not take your either business or job as something that you must do. Okay?
Yeah, so welcome back. Welcome back on studio. Good evening, Chizoba. Welcome to studio. Uh, yeah, so we are very excited to have you. You're a lawyer, an activist, host of Africans in Diaspora. We are hoping to get really empowered in your talk, Global Anti-Blackness and Africans in Ukraine. And, this is something that sends jitters to us, the Ukraine issue currently going on. So you can just kindly tell us more about yourself and just tell us more about this topic that you're going to speak about.
Okay. All right. Hi, my name is Chizoba Okoa. As you said, I'm a lawyer. I'm from Nigeria, and I currently reside in the United States. So I'm the host of Africans in Diaspora, which is a platform I created to show the realities of lives of Africans all over the world, and just to shed a light on what really happens when Africans go abroad and how it's not all what we see on social media. So today I'm going to talk about anti-blackness and what's going on in Ukraine. So the world is living through a moment in which there's hyper visualized examples of anti-black violence And we see that today because of social media and the connections that we have with each other. But racism, anti-blackness, and white supremacy has been around for a long time, and sadly, it is not going anywhere anytime soon. Um, Africans in diaspora is has started a little over 2 years ago, and during my time with Africans in diaspora, I have had the pleasure and honor of speaking to almost, I think, over 100 Africans all over the world in North America, Europe, Asia, and all parts of the world, Australia. And our experiences are the same, you know. We feel like we're going to this utopia, this perfect place. And when we get there, we are shocked by just everything, and we face a lot of discrimination, a lot of racism, and the stories are just very similar. So, but then what's so sad about it is that a lot of our people, young people in Africa, do not know about this because a lot of our people don't share their stories. So you see tens of thousands of young Africans dying every day to get to Europe, to get to America, to get to this perfect world, this utopia where once you get there, life is perfect. No, you have no other worries, and then you become rich, and just life is just perfect. But that is not true. That is not true. This utopia does not exist, and we have seen examples of what is happening in Ukraine right now, where this country was invaded by Russia, and they are going through a lot, which I sympathize with them, I empathize with them. But then you see, this racism, it's just there in full force, where people are running for their lives. Everyone, they're all running for their lives, but then somehow they manage to prevent these Black people, these Africans, from running away. We're all running away, we're all running for our lives, but somehow you prevent these people from. So what are you trying to say? You're trying to say just stay and die. You see instances of people getting on the train and then pulling Africans out of the trains, and just to let their people in. You see people getting to the borders and not being let in. There are instances where people are left outside in the cold, and some of them died because we know that our people are exposed to these harsh weathers which they're not used to. A lot of people died just out there in the cold. There are people who are still stuck in Ukraine as we speak, who cannot get to safety because they were not able to escape. So we see all forms of racism, discrimination as Africans living abroad, in schools, in at work, in the streets, just everywhere. Speak to any African living abroad. It is not easy. And then there's also something that we do, which is just pretend everything is okay. Pretend that this place is just this perfect world. You don't share the truth of life abroad with your family. You don't share with your friends. We just pretend. We take nice pictures, we post them on social media, we pretend everything is perfect, which is just wrong. And that was one of the reasons why I started Africans in Diaspora, just to tell the truth, not just so people would just stop going through the desert and dying of thirst, or going through the horrible ways which they try to get to this Western world, but also just to inform them, hey, we have the opportunity to build our continent. I mean, yeah, anyone watching this would say, yeah, but you left Africa. Yes, I did. I also had this image of this utopia, which I was going to, but I found out that it was not true. If I had the right information at the right time, maybe I would have made different choices. So it's a really, really crazy situation. but we can do better. We can tell the truth about life in diaspora as Africans living in diaspora, so that anyone who does not feel like they need to leave Africa will know that what we need to do is to stay and build. We stay and build. We build our continent, and that is maybe what will help reduce, because I don't think that racism and discrimination will ever be a thing of the past. I think we can reduce it. I think we can um, change the way that the world sees Africa. We have everything that we need to be the perfect continent. We have the manpower, we have the natural resources, we have everything. We just need to just find a way to build our continent. So maybe a few years from now, the stories of racism, white supremacy, and anti-blackness will maybe reduce. So yeah, that is my 2 cents. We Africans, we need to build solidarity. We need to support African by African. We need to build. We need to build our continent. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And actually, whatever you've said is very important, considering a lot of people actually, we go out of Africa. I, for once, was planning to go out of Africa at some point because, we have, as you say, this thing in our minds that we are running from our troubles, we are running from corruption, we are running from all these things, and going to a perfect place where everyone is just living nice lives and forgetting that actually we can do something better other than running from our problems. We can actually create this perfect Africa so that Africans can actually enjoy living in it and not go seek refuge in foreign lands, if I can say. So yeah, actually, that is very, very empowering, and I hope that there are many people watching this so that they know they have to work. The only solution to this problem is not running from Africa, but staying and working. Africans have this. They're strong. They're self-driven. So if we do something about Africa, we can actually end up enjoying Africa, and people will be leaving Europe or America to come and stay in Africa. So yeah, thank you very much. That was Chizoba. Thank you very much, Chizoba, for that. And we are supposed to have one guest speaker remaining, but I don't think she's logging in anytime soon. Yeah, okay, so she was supposed to talk about the rift between continental Africans and African Americans. So, just as a final take, what is your opinion on the rift between continental Africans and African Americans? Just a final takeaway. Just
Well,
to
like the yeah,
yeah,
well, like the speaker before me, Sharonika, that was her name.
yeah.
Yeah, like she said, till today, as we speak, an average African American still thinks Africa is this place that is filled with hungry children with flies all over their faces, and this place where you go to and you either die of diseases or war or whatever. Yeah, I'm telling you that is just what the average African American thinks, but that is not true. That is not true, and you find out that sometimes when you talk to them, you find out that they really appreciate it. They just don't have information, and a lot of them want to visit Africa. A lot of them they don't. It's just this bias, that they already have about Africans and nothing more. They don't know anything. There's anything good about Africa. So if we continue to do this, continue to talk to them, sensitize them, create awareness. I don't think any African American would say no, would be opposed to visiting Africa. A lot of them are when you speak to them, you see that they're open to it. They would love it. They just don't have the information. They just don't associate. A lot of Africans and African Americans, they don't associate. As an African, once you get to America, what they tell you is avoid these people. avoid these African Americans. But once you get to know them, you also find out that they have been told, hey, avoid these Africans.
Yeah.
So it's like a conspiracy to keep us apart.
Yeah.
It's messed up. But I'm glad that a lot of people are like trying to realize that, hey, this is wrong. Trying to just build these bridges between us, and that is just great. That is just great. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think we'll just get one final takeaway from Karim if he's there, and then we end the session.
Okay.
Karim, just kindly one final takeaway. Hello, Karim. Can you hear me? Can you get me? Okay. Okay. Okay, I think we've had a wonderful session up to that point, and I'm very grateful to and privileged, of course, to have these great speakers in studio for us. There's Chizoba, Karim, there was Sharene, and we talked about all these wonderful things. Okay, I've seen Karim is coming live. Okay, Karim, can we just get one final takeaway, please, before we end the show?
He's muted. Oh.
Yeah, okay, so again, wonderful to have you guys in studio, and I just think we should just continue to empower Africa, and celebrating this African History Month, because it's reminding us so much about Africa, and how much we really need to uphold our culture, stay fidelity, have this fidelity to our African continent. And actually, I think the main thing about this is to empower Africans, actually, wherever they may be in this continent, to know that they have this identity, that they belong, they have this sense of belonging. They're tied to Africa, which is a great continent, and that whenever they think about all these not belonging stuff, or whenever they feel like low, or they're discriminated against, they should just remember, like, they too have an identity wherever they are. So thank you, guys. That was our topic for today, the rift between continental Africans and African Americans. And actually, we've seen how we need to we've actually seen how we can narrow this rift, especially through empowering. Just empower, continue empowering people, the younger generations coming in, that actually we do not need to be separated as Africans. We are one people, we are one nation, and we shall continue for a better Africa. Thank you very much. We'll be having more sessions, because as I've said, this is our fifth actually meeting, or rather, for this month, and we'll be having more and more in order to empower Africans for a better Africa. So thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Okay.
Right.
Still, I was unable to hear you a second ago. Could you repeat kindly?
Okay, I was actually asking for let's have a short break, and then we'll get back. Apparently our speaker has finally come back. Let's just have a quick break, and then we'll come back in a few minutes.
We are calling on everybody to think Africa, act Africa, and prosper Africa.
It comes down to the change of mindset.
We are implementing the Africa we want.
A lot of the countries understand that this is good for them, that it is a game changer.
This is an historic moment for our continent.
So this is entirely African driven. These African countries are making a treaty among themselves.
We've been brought up with so many borders. You know, we have our little countries, we have our little economies, our little sectors. We have so many things that divide us, and I think this is an opportunity to really push against those boundaries and to change them.
I think you need to be very, very focused in what you are doing. Once you believe in what you are doing, you see, you should not take your either business or job as something that you must do. Okay?
Yeah, so welcome back to studio. Actually, I apologize for those hitches. We have our final speaker, Diane Azolibu, and she's going to talk to us about the topic, the great topic, though the grand topic for today, the rift between continental Africans and African Americans. So welcome, Diane. Good evening. Hi, good evening.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I do apologize because it's my first time hearing about StreamYard. And so I didn't know. I was talking to Daniel and I was like, what's going on? Am I supposed to be? I know I'm not late. So I was like confused about everything. So my sincere apologies for that. Yeah. So I would just like to start off by saying that I am proud to be African, but at the same time, I'm also proud to have grown up in America. So I've seen the best of both worlds. Being African has taught me a lot about my culture, about my heritage, but also living in America has taught me a lot about being an African American as well. I do identify as a Black woman, but at the same time, there are some things that I practice that would make me African American, and there's some things that I practice that would also make me African. So I would like to bring those two together as I'm discussing this with you guys today. This was a very difficult topic for me to discuss because growing up in the United States, I had dealt with a lot of colorist beliefs. I've dealt with a lot of different things. My final take in regards to everything that I've heard on the show is that as one people, we really do need to band together. In order to bridge the gap, there are a few things that I just want to talk about. There are 3 things that I would like to say. The first thing is we need to acknowledge the fact that we don't know every detail about our history. There are some things that we're not aware of, but at the same time, we can learn from what we are told, and we can learn how to be the best versions of ourselves. The second thing we can do is that we can practice agape love. And by practicing agape love, we also have to live by the golden rule. We need to treat each other the way we want to be treated. We can't treat each other any type of way and expect there to be love in our community, expect there to be unity. We have to practice agape love. We have to be there for one another. We are all Black at the end of the day. There is no difference. The only difference is that we didn't know so much about our history the way we were supposed to know about our history. But now we're living in the present day. And so we can make things better for our future generations and generations to come. We have to discuss topics that no one else wants to talk about. We have to talk about the things that make us unique, the things that make us the same. We have to find ways to communicate with each other. And I also want to say that we have to educate each other about what we need to know. We have to do our own research. There's so many things that are going on in our society nowadays that doesn't really tell us the truth about what it means to be African, what it means to be African American. So we need to do our own research, educate our young ones, educate those who are older, ask questions about things that we don't understand. We need to be able to have difficult conversations because being open-minded allows us to learn the truth, and the truth does set you free. The truth hurts, but at the same time, in order for you to grow as a person, you need to learn the truth. And I also wanted to say that we need to pay attention to our history. I also wanted to also reiterate the fact that as Black people, we need to have a safe space for us to have conversations about our origin. A lot of times African Americans would assume that we don't know how they're feeling, we don't know what they're going through, but I would beg to differ. I do know what you're going through. I do know what you're feeling. Growing up in the United States kind of gave me that sense of like, wow, so this is what it means to be Black in America. So I do understand. And Africans, we need to also be empathetic of the fact that African Americans have gone through almost 200 years worth of intergenerational trauma. We need to see eye to eye with each other and recognize that we're one race, we're one people. So that's my final take, is that we all need to band together and be the best versions of ourselves. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Thank you very much, Diane. That was quite a nice whatever you just highlighted. You know, the key points of what we were talking about, and you know, you brought in this aspect of love, and it's something that is overlooked, but I think
Yeah.
it's very important. Yeah, it's very
Yes.
important because people, you tend to tell somebody, love is important, and they look
Mhm.
at you like, what are you talking about? So I
Right.
think that is very,
Right.
very important. So I think that is very, very important. And actually, thank you very much for sharing your
Thank you. I think her video is off, but I think she'll be right back on. Miss Otieno, do you hear us? Just seeing a dark screen. Before she gets back on, I do also want to say that because of the issues that's going on in Ukraine as well, there are so many things that we as Black people need to do to be able to recognize that we can make Africa a better place to live. My parents, when they decided to come to the United States in order for us to have a better life, they did say that it's a lot more difficult for us to be able to find different opportunities in Africa. And I always ask myself the question of why is that? So in order for us to do that, we do need to acknowledge the fact that we have problems in our society. We have governments that are exploiting their natural resources. We have so many things that are wrong with our culture that we really do need to have conversations about as well. So Africa can be a place for our children to grow, for us to grow, so that we can be able to bring more people to Africa, to give them more knowledge about our country, our beautiful continent. And so that's something that I also want to add. And so thank you guys so much for having me.
So I apologize for that technical hitch. I was just requesting our final guest speaker to give us the final takeaway. Karim, if you will, kindly. Karim.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear
Yeah.
me clearly?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and say, give my final take. And I'd say get connected, keep connected, um, be our brother's keeper. And as the previous speaker said, the creation of safe spaces. And let's break the stigma of therapy being something considered a bad thing in the Black community. Yeah. So love
Yeah.
in the house from Trinidad and Tobago, and God bless. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much, Caris. Thank you very much for today. Thank you very much. This has been a very wonderful conversation. Um, so we have been talking about the rift between continental Africans and African Americans. And this has been a great show. We have had guests, and I just want to thank every guest that has talked to us about everything, different topics, African Caribbeans, Karim, and we've had Diane talking to us about the rift between continental Africans. We've had Sharonay, we've had Chizoba, and I would just like to tell you guys to make sure that you watch this show, and because it's very empowering to us as Africans, and we need to have this. We need to be empowered as Africans, and just try maybe to just narrow the gap that is there, or the rift that is there, because at the end of the day, we are all black, we are all Africans, we share the same race, we share the same ethnicity, we share the same roots. And so this is Africa for Africans, and our African History Month celebration continues on this month, because this has been our fifth as conference, and we have many more conferences going forth. So that is the end of our show today, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.